Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're going to be detectives, basically. We're going to journey back in time to uncover the blueprint of a nation, to trace the real origins of the powerful ideas that shaped American law and government. So let's get into it.
Have you ever really thought about it? When we talk about things like freedom of speech or the right to a fair trial, where did those ideas come from? Did they just pop into existence in 1776? Well, the short answer is no, and the long answer is way more interesting.
Okay, look at this list. These are the big ones, the absolute bedrock of the American system. Think of these principles as our destination. Our whole goal in this explainer is to figure out the winding road that led us to each one of these foundational ideas.
Now, our journey doesn't actually start in America. Nope. We have to cross the Atlantic, back to England, because this is where we find the first crucial pieces of the puzzle, forged over centuries of conflict and tradition.
Two dates here are absolutely key to our story: 1215 and 1689. These two moments represent giant leaps forward in the history of individual rights, and you can hear their echoes loud and clear in the U.S. Constitution.
So let's start way back in 1215. You've got King John of England, and he's kind of out of control. His barons got so fed up, they basically cornered him and forced him to sign a document called the Magna Carta, the Great Charter. And for the first time, it was officially written down that the king was not above the law.
And that right there, that's our first big idea, limited government. It's this crucial concept that a government's power should have a ceiling. It isn't absolute. An idea born on a field in England over 800 years ago, and it's now a cornerstone of American democracy.
The Magna Carta also gave us the idea of due process. This basically means the government has to play by the rules before it can take away your freedom or your property. It can't just toss you in jail because it feels like it. There has to be a fair process, like a trial.
All right, now let's hit the fast-forward button over 400 years to 1689. The English Bill of Rights comes along and just supercharges the ideas from the Magna Carta. It made it clear that Parliament, the people's representatives, was more powerful than the king. And look at this list: no excessive punishments, and famously, no taxation without representation. Sound familiar? It should.
So, we have these hard-won political rights coming out of England. But at the same time, there's a philosophical revolution sweeping across Europe. It gave these rights a powerful new language, a universal reason why they mattered. This was the Enlightenment.
And one of the biggest names here was the English philosopher John Locke. He came up with this fascinating idea. What if our rights don't come from a king or from any government? What if instead they just exist because we exist, that we are born with them?
This is the concept of natural law: life, liberty, and property. Locke argued these rights are yours simply because you're a human being. I mean, this was a totally revolutionary idea that gave some serious philosophical muscle to the political fights that were happening.
Okay, so if we're all born with these rights, why even have a government? Well, Locke's answer was something he called the social contract. It's like a deal. We, the people, agree to give up a little bit of our freedom to a government, and in return, that government's #1 job is to protect our natural rights. And if it fails to do that, the contract is broken.
Then another brilliant thinker, Montesquieu, came along and asked, okay, but how do we actually build a government that protects liberty instead of threatening it? His solution? The separation of powers. Don't concentrate all the power in one place. Split it up into a branch that makes laws, a branch that enforces them, and a branch that interprets them. They can all keep each other in check.
So now it's time to see how all these pieces came together. Let's head across the Atlantic, because in the American colonies, these two powerful streams, the English political tradition and Enlightenment philosophy, were about to merge into one revolutionary new river.
And you can really see the two streams of thought right here. On one side, you have the concrete rights colonists saw as their inheritance as English subjects, and on the other, you've got these universal principles from thinkers like Locke and Montesquieu that explained why they deserved those rights. The combination of the two? Absolutely explosive.
And you know, the colonists weren't just thinking about these ideas, they were actually living them. Way back in 1620, the Pilgrims signed the Mayflower Compact. This was a real-world social contract. It was an agreement to create their own government and follow its rules. This planted the seeds of self-government deep in American soil.
So as things got more and more tense with Britain, a guy named Thomas Paine took all these complex philosophical and historical ideas and boiled them down into a little pamphlet called Common Sense. He just used simple,
powerful language to argue that, hey, it's just logical for America to govern itself. The thing went viral, 18th century style, and really pushed public opinion toward independence.
And woven into this whole American experiment was another vital principle, one that had been growing in several colonies: religious liberty. The idea that you should be free to follow your own conscience and practice your faith without the government meddling. That was a profoundly important part of this new blueprint for a nation.
So, we've traced this incredible journey from 13th century England all the way to 18th century America, but why does any of this matter to us right here, right now?
Well, here are the key things to remember. These founding principles didn't just appear in a sudden flash of genius. They were the result of a long, slow evolution. They were built on the foundation of English rights, they were given intellectual firepower by Enlightenment thinkers, and they were put into practice by generations of American colonists.
Ultimately, the reason we trace these ideas isn't just for a history lesson. It's because understanding the blueprint is absolutely essential for being an informed and active citizen. If you know where these principles came from, you have a much better shot at understanding what they mean and why they're worth protecting today.
And that kind of leads us to our final thought. From debates about the limits of government power to arguments over due process, how do you see these ancient principles, some of them 800 years old, still playing out in the world around you? It's something to think about. Thanks for watching.